Once again, once again, welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join the first session for this last series number 5 in the APRU Teaching in Virtual Environments series, and I'm so delighted that these series have been going on now for more than a year, and it's great to see both familiar faces and longtime friends of APRU Global Health Program, and but also new faces and names. So my name is Melissa Withers. I am the director of the APRU Global Health Program, and along with Eleanor Vandegrift from the University of Oregon, we would like to welcome you. So this webinar series is hosted by the APRU Global Health Program at USC and the University of Oregon STEM Education Program. And tonight's topic is fostering student problem solving in class. And that's something that I need help with. So I've been looking forward to this session. Just for, before we begin, I would like to just give you a quick bio of the 2 expert speakers that we have joining us tonight, so you can get a sense of who will be giving us our overview. So first of all, many of you already know her, but our facilitator extraordinaire is Eleanor Vandegrift. She's the program director for Global Science Education Initiatives in the Division of Global Engagement at the University of Oregon. She's trained as an ecologist and has taught university-level life science courses, led STEM education professional development programs, and supported curricular and pedagogical reform to make science interesting, engaging, and relevant to improve students' learning experiences. I love that. She's facilitated STEM education and communication workshops with US and global partners, and as recognition of her teaching excellence, she's received numerous awards and is the author of several articles about STEM education reform and professional development, and you can find those on our website. And the second facilitator expert joining us is Gillian Kidman, who is an associate professor in science education, School of Curriculum Teaching and Inclusive Education in the Faculty of Education at Monash University in Australia, which is a relatively recent APRU member. Gillian is, the co-editor of the International Journal of Geographical and Environmental Education, and has an international reputation in STEM teaching and curriculum design, recognized by university, state, and national awards. She was a writer and science advisor of the Australian Curriculum Science and Australian Curriculum Biology, and is particularly interested in interdisciplinary education, which is what I think we're doing right here, and curriculum design. She is well respected throughout Southeast Asia, working extensively in STEM education with the Southeast Asian Ministries of Education. And her work in the disciplinary and educational inquiry provides a fertile ground for the exploration of developing content knowledge during inquiry-based learning, teaching, and skill acquisition. So as you can see, we have 2 fabulous experts who are willing to impart their wisdom and knowledge with us today. So thanks for joining.
Thank you, Melissa, for the lovely introduction. So our goals for this overall workshop series are to provide pedagogical, technological, and teaching support to faculty across the APRU network, and we've expanded beyond the APRU network also, which delights us. And then create opportunities for APRU faculty and beyond to connect and share resources and experiences. Today, in more specifics, you will have the opportunity to reflect on the ways in which students already engage in problem solving in your courses, And then to identify opportunities to create more engagement for students with problem solving, either independently or with groups during class. As has been our format for previous sessions, for those of you who've been here before, we have about 30 minutes where you'll hear from us, and then about 30 minutes of small group discussion, and approximately 30 minutes then for a large group discussion and report out. And as always, flexible with the time as we see how things go. There's many ways that we encourage you to interact today. The first is to turn on your audio and video if you're able. Thank you for those of you who've been able to participate in the chat already and share where you're joining us from today. We'll use breakout rooms along our time. We have some polling questions. We used Mentimeter last month. For those of you who joined us, we're going to use Mentimeter again. And then I always encourage people to think and take a note for themselves. I love having my little notebook with a pen to write down notes that occur to me when I'm in the middle of a workshop. So we encourage you to do the same, take some notes. All right, this is a note for me to look at our Mentimeter poll. If you go to in another browser somewhere, if you go to menti.com and you type in the code, which today is 39494466, you can answer this question of how are you doing your teaching? Are you doing in-person teaching, online synchronous, online asynchronous, hybrid, or another option? How are you doing teaching right now? All right, looks like about a third of the people who are here have been able to respond. And of this group, we have a mix of how people are teaching. So some of you are back in person already. Many of you are still online synchronously or asynchronously, and then some are also doing hybrid. Great. The next poll question, to get you thinking about problem solving and in what ways, actually, you know what, I'm going to do this. Let's do this first. Actually, it says in what other ways, but let's do the poll. In what ways do you have students do problem solving? I did not notice my typo until I brought it up here. So in what ways do you have students do problem solving in your courses? This is a question where you can type in your answers. Let's see, vignettes, discussion groups, discussion questions. Does that mean that students are working on these during class together? I'm guessing that. Small group discussion, case study analysis. Quick questions during lecture by using a poll in menti.com. Okay, great. And then having students work on problems on their own or in groups, case studies. Great. Mock breakouts, outbreaks and other types of simulations. Okay, great. So giving students an opportunity to simulate a health problem. Team projects. Excellent. Problem sets. Oh, and problem sets are great in class or out of class. Okay, excellent. Lots of really good ideas here for problem solving. Oh, online forum where they debate an issue. Okay, thank you so much for sharing the ways that you are already thinking about having students engage in problem solving. want to spend just a little bit of time thinking about problem solving and what some of the research literature says about problem solving. Here's a quote from a paper from a few years ago. The teaching of problem solving skills, this is actually how do our students learn how to do the problem solving skills, cannot be best accomplished in a traditional lecture format class, but rather requires a carefully structured active learning environment, which facilitates the introduction, practice, and eventual deep understanding of problem solving as a process. I love the parts of this quote that are identifying process, because so often our students want to get to the right answer rather than doing the process of learning how to do the problem solving. And that this is something we can't just stand in front of a class and lecture about. We're not going to get to that deep learning that we want students to be able to do. This is from another research paper from just last year that looked at what they called citizenship behavior and learner engagement in collaborative environments. And they asked this really important question of what impacts student engagement in class for problem solving. And they looked at 4 variables. They wanted to see which of these variables were going to have the greatest impact. There's something that they identified as organizational citizenship behavior. And on the next slide, I'll give you some examples of what they meant by these. Emergent leadership, group cohesion, and then an engagement. So how absorbed were students in this topic that they were forgetting the world around them, just really excited about the topics in the class. So as they looked at this organizational student behavior, they had students in a large lecture class who were juniors and seniors. This was a university in Korea where students were having to take a class together that involved a lot of problem solving, and it was a required course for many different majors. So in these surveys that students did along the semester, to get to organizational citizenship behavior, they asked questions such as, I help other group members who have a heavy workload. I am one of the most conscientious students in my group, so I'm thinking about others, thinking about the process. I consume a lot of time complaining about trivial matters in group work. So you can see how that's kind of the negative, the first 2 that are more positive, this one's more detrimental. And then the last example, I do not abuse the rights of other group members. When they talked about emergent leadership, examples were, I took charge of what the group should do for a group project, or students might lead in relationships. I make sure everyone in the group was listening to one another. The 4th element around group cohesion, these are things such as belonging and morale. I'm happy to be part of this group. I belong in this group. And then engagement, which is this absorption, what they call absorption. When I'm working in the group, I forget everything else. So what these researchers were really interested in looking at was how each of these 4 characteristics and elements of problem solving relate to students actually learning the process of problem solving and being engaged. And I think there's some interesting lessons here for us as we're thinking about what we're doing to designing learning experiences for students. What they found through their analysis of watching student interactions and having students complete surveys is that organizational citizenship behaviors. These are these examples, again, of I help others, I don't consume a lot of time, I'm conscientious in the group. When students are displaying these organizational citizenship behaviors, it leads to emergent leadership, where they're bringing others in, they're creating the process moving forward. And it also leads to group cohesion, where the group is working and functioning together as a unit to solve the problem at hand. They also found in this work that emergent leadership and group cohesion led to each other. When you have people who are taking that on that role of saying, I'm going to create an environment where everybody's here, everybody's part of it, then it leads to group cohesion. That makes sense. And then what they found is that emergent leadership and group cohesion led to student engagement. So part of their question here was, does organizational citizenship behavior lead to student engagement? And what they found is that it did not lead directly to student engagement, but it led to these other 2 factors: students becoming leaders, which is such a key skill that we want students to learn as we talk about critical thinking, and students learning how to work with each other in that group cohesive environment. what really leads to the space where students forget everything else and they just think about their activities. So something to think about as you are thinking about how you bring problem solving into your class is how do you create opportunities for students to build their leadership skills, their cohesion skills, and realize that they are doing problem solving with a group, they're all in it together. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now to Gillian. Oh, you're muted, but just let me know when you want me to switch slides.
Okay, not yet. Thanks very much, Ellie, and hi, everybody. It's lunchtime here on Friday, so I guess I say good afternoon to you, but I think there might be some evenings and mornings out there as well. I'm really honoured to be here and to share my style of teaching, if you like. I was originally a science and mathematics agriculture teacher in Queensland in Australia. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on Queensland's education, because you'll be able to understand then why I have done what I've done across my career. It was back in 1963 or thereabouts, so quite a while ago, that Queensland decided they weren't going to have a state mandated exam in order to get into university. It was going to be school-based assessment. And that gave the teachers the ability to be creative with their teaching. And so Queensland has, for a very, very long time, been well known in Australia for its inquiry-based and its experimental focus on assessment. And so it was from that background that I completed my education. I only did 12 months in Queensland, but I then became a teacher and was able to teach the way I wanted to teach. So teach for learning, teach for thinking, teach through inquiry, and not have to worry about massive amounts of exam results and have that unfair pressure on the learner and on the teacher. So if you could advance one now, please, Ellie. So from that background, I was approached back in about, I think it was 2008, 2009, to become a writer of the Australian curriculum. And we don't have a state-based curriculum in Australia, we have a national one, and it's called the Australian curriculum, and that's what it looks like. It's three-dimensional. Probably the three-dimensionality of it is similar to what you have there in the States, where we have these cross-cutting ideas. So we have 8 different subjects or learning areas. So English, mathematics, science, the humanities, which are history and geography, and so on. We have 7 general capabilities: literacy, numeracy, ICT, and so on. And we have cross-curriculum priorities. And they are the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures that we have here in Australia, Asia and the engagement with Asia, because they're our closest neighbours. And of course, we have sustainability. So the cross-curriculum priorities and the general capabilities must be integrated into every single learning area by every single teacher. So we're not just teaching content, we're teaching the skills, the thinking as well, and we're doing it in contexts that are very much highlighted across the world, like the sustainability, the big COPs 26 that's going on now. So advance one more, please, Ellie. Where I'd like to focus my little time with you today is in that critical and creative thinking general capability. That's absolutely critical for when we're talking about problem solving. So it's going to be problem solving in relation to Asia, sustainability, or the Indigenous focus that Australia has, but it could be housed in an English, mathematics, science, history, geography, or whatever type of classroom. So very much mandated, critical and creative thinking, and it's within that that problem solving lies. So advance one again, please. So this is our critical and creative thinking component, and there are 4 key ideas. But first, I'd like to just define what we consider the skills of critical and creative thinking are. So advance one, please. We have these list of thinking skills. that we need to be developing in the students from about the age of 5 years through to 18. So right across the compulsory and then the last 2 years of non-compulsory thinking. I've underlined and highlighted explaining and reasoning because they're absolutely critical when it comes to the problem solving. Advance one, please. The other part of the critical and creative component is we have to see situations in a new way. There's no point in just regurgitating knowledge. We have to find alternate explanations. So that's our reasoning and our critical thinking. And we have to be able to generate a positive outcome. We don't want to be dwelling always on the negative, but try and improve the situation. Okay, advance one, please. I'll just now quickly run around the circle for the 4 key components. Inquiry, this is the part that I was responsible for in the curriculum across all the subject areas, is posing questions. Question what is happening out there and how can we do it better? Advance one, please. We then have to generate ideas, imagine new possibilities, consider alternatives. And we actually train or help the kids learn the processes of doing this. Advance one, thanks. Apply new logic, drawing conclusions, evaluation of the procedure that you followed and the outcomes is all part of the analysing and the synthesising. And the final one there is the reflecting on the thinking and the processes. Now, those 2 that I've highlighted there in the yellow box are what we're specifically referring to today in the problem solving. And number 1 is the metacognition. Now, when I was writing the inquiry and the critical creative thinking components, I was really wanting the students, the children in our schools to be metacognitive, to understand what it is that they're doing in their thinking, having them tune in to those aha moments, those where they suddenly see a connection happening, to know what it feels like and to be able to follow that success feeling rather than just doing it for the sake of achieving a problem that might be on a textbook page or something. So next slide, please. So the overall goal was to look at not just the what's happening in English or in mathematics or in science or anything, but to have a look at it in an interdisciplinary way as well, because we can't solve any real world wicked problems by just looking at one particular discipline. And we've really learned that in the last 2 years. Haven't the last 2 years been amazing for education? It's disrupted us, but we've seen how everything has to be in sync and coordinated. So we're looking for that space between, that decision making. If I do this from this particular perspective, what's it going to have an impact on in terms of a different area or a different subject? If I'm behaving like this as a scientist, what impact is it happening out there in society or something? So it's trying to put the student into the shoes of the actual job that they're heading towards. So if you're in a geography class, you're behaving like a geographer. You're asking questions, you're finding solutions, the way that a professional might be trying to do that. And really importantly, when you're trying to figure out what goes where and how it's all coming together, as you're solving your problem, you're forcing the student or forcing your team to actually explain their ideas. So there is a reporting back, there is an accountability that you have a decision made. This is what you did, and this is why you did it. Next slide, please. So part of this metacognition, lessons and learning, if you like, is to break it down. When we give a student a problem, we'll say, okay, this problem might be relying on your convergent thinking or your divergent thinking. So there's 2 different types of thinking we would be, reinforcing with the students. We can see it here in the mathematics of convergent and divergent lines. We've got art, perspective drawing, and so on. In graphics, architects work with convergent and divergent drawing. We get the kids using those particular words as well. We also get them to consider, well, what am I asking here? What do we need to do? Do we need just to explore this idea and come up with a solution? Or do we have to exploit something to come up with a solution or a new thing? We can house it in Einstein, and he was really good at exploring, coming up with these wonderful, crazy new ideas and following on with them. Whereas Edison, of light bulb fame, he was really good at taking somebody else's idea and taking it forward. So he was exploiting it. And so it's this convergent, divergent, exploration, exploitation type of ideas that we try and get through to the students as they're working on their problems. Next slide, please. Back one, thanks. What we also try and do is break down the type of problem that we might be giving the student. They can imagine these different types of problems. We might get them to actually state which one it is. There's 4 of them. So the first one, exploitation activities. Very easy to do if we follow the idea that Polya put forward way back in 1945, using a heuristic, understand, plan, do, check. Okay, very, very popular in mathematics. The second type of a problem is where you can exploit it. And I've used some light bulbs there from Edison. We had a candle, we had a traditional light bulb, and then we've taken it forward to the new incandescent light bulbs and so on. Next slide, please. Now it's really starting to get interesting. Type 3 is where you've got a solution, but the problem itself is a little bit unclear. So they're thinking outside of the box. And an example here is repairing a chair. They have to come up with a solution for it. And for this particular example, there's belts, normally used to keep up your jeans, but they're interwoven to make the webbing. So it's repurposing a commonly used idea of a belt and making it into the seat of a chair. The type 4 is the hardest one to do, but we do it all the time if we're doodling. We do it all the time if we're into the into a makerspace in STEM, for example. So we've got a problem that is undefined, and we have no idea really what we're doing. We just keep going and going and going, and something comes out of it. And I've used the example there of Leonardo da Vinci and his flying machines. Next slide, please. So let's just explore this one here. This is how we would possibly get kids to understand the freedom of idea for this 4th one. So Leonardo's idea of his flying machine probably originated, they think, or the historians think, way back in 1100 with a Chinese flying top toy. You sort of rub your hands together and it flies off. They think there's very little chance that Leonardo would have actually seen one of those toys. Now, Leonardo was famous for looking at birds and anatomy and whatever else he had there in Italy at the time and drawing those. So they think his air screw was probably based on the levitation of some birds. So they would just sort of be taking off and a vertical flight. It wasn't until a couple of 100 years that these 2 folk, and I don't know how to pronounce them, Lannoy and Beauvenu, I guess, was able to combine Leonardo's vertical takeoff and the Chinese toy into some sort of a feathered model. But that's as far as it went. It didn't fly, it just sort of happened. They had this idea. Jump forward another couple of years, 100 years, and we have in 1936 a successful helicopter, a machine that was able to fly up vertically and then fly along. But it wasn't for another 3 years or so, just before the Second World War, that some folk there in the US made a practical helicopter. So that's exploitation, but exploitation in a positive sense, taking original ideas that are coming from somewhere else, modifying it and improving it. And that's what problem solving is. So trying to get the students to get this sense of empowerment, if you like. And Ellie was referring to it in terms of engagement, intellectual engagement. So if you'd go forward one more, please. we'd also get the kids playing with the toys that we're doing. And so this one you've possibly seen at the paper helicopter. You can vary the length of the blades or the thickness of the blades, the weight of the paper clip that might be on the bottom, and do all sorts of weird and wonderful science experiments based on the rotation and the direction and controlling variables and whatnot. So the students are there immersed, it's hands-on, and they're doing it, they're intellectually engaged. Next slide, please. And I'll hand it back over to you now, Ellie, for your second multimeter poll.
Okay, great. Let's go back to Mentimeter. And in Mentimeter, it's the same code that we used before, okay, where you type in, go to menti.com and then type in 39494466. And we were curious about what type of problem solving you already use in your courses. Do you use the exploitation of activities, exploiting known knowledge? Type 3 where the solution is clear, but the problem is unclear. That was the chair example, or this exploration kind of idea. Okay, so it seems like of the people who are answering so far, there's kind of this type 2, which is that exploiting the known knowledge. Gillian, do you want to say anything else?
I'm just excited by this. I was imagining that there'd be type 1, just very traditional problem solving type of activities going on. But the fact that there's actually exploiting that known knowledge, and the single person doing the exploration, that's excellent. That's really exciting. Good.
It is exciting. Good. Let's go back. Let's go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay, so one more. Okay, so what we also want the students to become aware of as they're progressing with their problem solving and their metacognition is to have a look at what their personal preference is. Now, none of this is actually learning styles. That's a little bit passé, but it's all about I'll leave it there, that's okay. It's all about what the learner themselves feel is appropriate for them at a time. So we get the students to think about, well, are you an adapter by nature? Do you like structured problem solving? Do you like there's a very clear process and a solution, and you work within some current limits? So you're adapting the knowledge, or are you an innovator? Less structured problem, you like to think outside the box, you agree to disagree, you argue on a process or a solution, and you like sort of working beyond the status quo. So people are one way or the other, by and large. Yes, it is a continuum, but you very rarely will find a complete fence sitter. Okay, next slide. So what is the ideal? Which way do we go? Now, as Ellie pointed out earlier, and in a lot of the problem solving that you were identifying on the polls, is it's done in a group. Okay, so there's a team effort. So next slide, or next click, please. A mixed team is what we need, but it's not really easy for the teacher. We can't just say, okay, I want these innovators and these adapters to come together. The teacher has to watch the behavior of the students. Otherwise, you'll end up with some arguments because the innovators will get very frustrated because they want to dominate and do things in a very unstructured way, which just confuses the adapters. And the adapters will just sit back and say, ah, not participating. And then they become social loafers within the group, if you like. So you have to actually get the students to understand there's different preferences at work within the one group, and you have to work together as a team. And that's really, really important. Okay, last slide. Thank you from me. So when we're getting these students to do any form of problem solving, over the years, we actually work with them to understand, well, who are you as a problem solver? Are you a convergent or a divergent thinker? Can you think in between? Do you like to explore or exploit? Or are you in between? Are you an adapter or an innovator? Or somewhere in between? What type of problem solving do you like? Heuristics, come up with a better solution, a new use, or one that you really don't know what you're doing and you're just going along for the innovative ride? Doesn't really matter. So long as the student knows, this is who I am, this is my preference, and I'm happy to work with others who have a different preference, so long as they understand my preference as well. And it's that understanding of others and others' styles when you're working in a team that is really, really important. So it's that appreciation of different people, different thinking, that's all really very empowering for the problem solvers as well, because we want them to grapple. We want them to feel that indecision, that enlightenment when they have this cognitive breakthrough. So it's all about problem solving, is all about how we know and understand ourselves and know and understand the actual process behind the different types of problems and the different processes of trying to solve them. And yeah, as Ellie was saying before, it is about engagement. If the students aren't cognitively engaged, then they're not really problem solving. They might do it because it's an activity, but you know, they have to really be closely aligned with that personal growth as well. So I'll leave it there for you now. I think we have an activity or something.
Great, thank you. To say what I really appreciate about this presentation is you've put some language and some research behind what I have experienced as a teacher in a classroom, that tension that you can have within groups, and why does that tension manifest itself? And there's a lot of reasons. So thank you for the kind of the theoretical underpinning to understand that practical situation.
Well, what I failed to actually say, and I do apologize, folks, is that I was very much talking about the student in the school, because we start with obviously our teaching starts with the young child and works its way up. For a lot of us, though, we're in education faculties, so we're not so much teaching the child, we're teaching the pre-service teacher. And it's that pre-service teacher that needs to understand all of this as well. And I hate to say it, I'm really old. I found out that I was old when I started teaching some pre-service teachers who said, yeah, we did that at school. And I thought, yeah, okay, they've experienced the curriculum that I wrote all those years ago. That's really aging. But at least it's affirming, because the ideas behind what, you know, research was around of good, solid problem solving are actually being used in the classroom. And now we're having it come out in our own teaching force as well. So that's kind of cool. So it's for kids and for pre-service teachers. Sorry.
I love that. I love that story. Great. Well, we wanted to do some breakout rooms with you, and we'd love to invite you first to say your name and introduce yourself and your institution. And as is our habit in these, if you could select a facilitator and then a timekeeper. And I think we'll have about 25 minutes for groups. And we have 3 questions for you to consider. Actually, I'm sorry, 4 questions for you to consider today. What type of problem solving do students need to learn in your discipline? So thinking really broadly first. And then how do you teach students problem solving skills in your courses? A third question, what types of problem solving do you use in your courses? And we were thinking about the types 1 through 4 that you might want to think about. You could think about other ways to do this too. And then what opportunities do you provide students to practice problem solving? And I would add in this, think about it both in groups and independently. I'm going to stop share just for a moment so I PowerPoint and grab those questions and put them in the chat. And my colleague Kylie was going to work on small groups for us. Maybe Kylie, are you having
Creating 4 breakout rooms.
Yeah, 4 sounds perfect. Yes.
So I'm creating the rooms now.
Okay. All right, so we'll have, let's, right now it's 44, so it's a quarter till the top of the hour. Let's go until 10 after the hour. We'll give a solid 25 minutes for breakout rooms.
Okay.
And I
Open the rooms now.
Great, thank you, Kylie. Menti poll again for anyone who is able to share one idea from your breakout room, and then Gillian, I might ask you to share something that happened in your room, or somebody else from your room can do it too, but just any thoughts that you have. But let's see what
We have a speaker.
Oh, excellent. You good. You
Yeah.
assigned you're good.
I was yeah. How are you, Ellie?
I'm fine, Fernando. Let's do this polling question first, and we'll see
Sure,
what kind
sure.
of ideas, and then I'd love to hear a report out from your room. So again, if you go to menti.com and then type in the code, and 39494466 is the code. What's a key idea from your breakout room? I guess it doesn't have to be key, just something interesting.
Can you flash again? It's in the chat.
It's in the chat, yes. And can you
Thank
see
you.
it on my screen? Can you see the poll on my screen?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, there's my timer for breakout rooms. Okay. The importance of being able to apply problem solving in real world situations. Oh, so true. And I'll say that in the room I was in, I heard very different types of real world situations, from ethical dilemmas to actual practical public health, which was another conversation I heard. So different ways. Bye, Maria. See you soon. Individual and group work are often used to develop problem solving skills. Applying problem solving to find new and novel uses of an old idea. I like that. I love the helicopter idea.
I love Da Vinci. I wish I was really, really, really old.
Oh, I know.
I'd take some drawing lessons. Can you imagine it though? Being able to draw like that, to think and to draw simultaneously would be,
Yes, I don't have that talent.
no.
The need for faculty to cultivate scientific inquiry and intellectual curiosity. Oh, I like that term, intellectual curiosity.
I'm going to write that one down. Well done to whoever put that one up.
That's nice. Well, I can come back and check in a little bit to see if there's any other ideas that come up. Fernando, you wanted to report from your group. I'd love to hear some of the ideas from your conversation.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to join the breakout room. Unfortunately, I was not able to join the earlier conversation between Gillian and Nas. But anyway, I was somehow be able to catch up the discussions. So I'm Fernando Garcia from the University of the Philippines, Manila. And in our group, there are actually 5 of us. One also coming from the Philippines, and she's in the division of Quezon in one of the high school or secondary school in the University of in the Philippines, and the other one is coming from Malaysia. The other one is Monash from Thailand. So on the types of problem solving, that we are being done, that we are doing in our own workplace. For mass, I think, or for Malaysia, the type of problem solving that they encounter in her workplace is more on type 2 and type 3. Type 2 is more on solving through exploitation, and type 3 is the opportunity that we provided in that in her workplace is that the other sectors are the workplace goes goes to their university to really access some of the equipment, some of the resources in their university. In our case, now in the University of the Philippines, wherein the type of problem that we encounter are more of public health issues and problems. We normally have type 2 and type 4. Type 4 is, I think, you mentioned right ago, that it's more of Leonardo da Vinci type of solving problems. Well, that's what I classified, because many of our students are taking masters and PhD level, so they need to come up with some innovative solutions. They need to come up with new ideas, just to address the public health issues that they encounter. For financial, who is also engaged in the secondary or high school students, the type of problem solving that they do in their workplace is more of type 1. It's typically textbook, more of typical textbook. It's question and answer. Then they also do some experiments, but they will not, due to limited resources in her workplace, they don't really proceed in getting up or coming up new ideas or solutions or innovative. That's all I think. So
Great.
yeah, thank you, Ellie.
What I really enjoy in that is that there's lots of different ways that each of you are thinking based on your discipline, based on your situation. What is the type of problem solving that you hope students can do? Melissa, who was in your group that might want to share something that we haven't heard yet about? Doesn't have to be you, but somebody else from your group to share something about problem solving that was interesting.
And we had some great discussions. I put 2 of the comments in there, but we had Nanita, Maria, and Mohammed. Anybody?
Nanita, do you want to share, or Mohammed, do you want to share?
Okay, I think thank you for the opportunity to share. So in our case, we made use, I shared to the group earlier about the use of level 2, the type 2 problem solving skill. So one important note that I just emphasized during the discussion is that there is also a need for us. I'm teaching undergraduate students in nursing, and based on our discipline, what I would usually do and apply is that I try to bring to our students the philosophical and the historical underpinnings of our profession. So I try to bring them back to what are the roots of the profession, and try to present to them how did it evolve and how they can apply it as well, consider it in their learning. So aside from that, I also there is also, with regards to problem solving skills. So one important technique strategy that I am using, aside from Bloom's taxonomy, I am also using research articles, research based situations wherein the students are asked to read and make a reflective analysis of the researches that I shared to them, and then later reflect on how are these researches can actually have impact on them, on their real situation in their community, for example, or in their own family, or in the school where they are attending. So given this, they are able to realize and analyze the ideal situation given to us by those that have been written and published in our research. But at the same time, they are able to analyze and make a good reflection and decision making in terms of how, if this situation may not be ideal, how are they going to respond if there is a need for them to make decisions on the unideal setting. So meaning to say the students are now learning how to make a possible problem solving skill in terms of if this case or the new situation may occur, given the limited conditions or circumstances, what are the possible things that they will be doing, or possible solutions that they may employ. So I think we are also at the same time teaching our students learn how to adjust their decision making analysis and skills. At the same time, we also need to teach them the very basic on how to identify the priority problem, because most of the time they are bombarded with several problems that may be existing. But the thing is, they need to develop that skill to identify and prioritize which among them should be given the first and the priority, the focus, which among them should be prioritized. No? So I guess that's it. And thank you for the opportunity to share what I have in mind.
Thank you, Anita. I was thinking about the part about reflection, and I was thinking back, Gillian, to your slide that has reflection and metacognition as one of those key elements of critical thinking skills. And I sometimes I would say that some colleagues who I've worked with have kind of brushed past reflection. Like, why do we need reflection? We don't need that. But it's so powerful to take that time to stop and learn, what do I know? How am I going to apply it? Otherwise, we don't know how to fit the pieces together. Gillian, do you have any thoughts?
Only just that it's essential. You know, you can't just go from problem to solution and move on, because there's no real learning in that. It's just showing that you can follow a process. But you need to be able to follow that intellectual process so that it has meaning, and then you can apply it later on in a different context. So that reflection is excellent, and it's so very much needed.
From the other group, Rashid, this was your group. Is there anything we haven't heard yet that you want to spend a minute reflecting on?
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. Yeah, we had great discussion in our group. We had people from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from Ecuador, from different disciplines, from mathematics, philosophy, zoology. No, it is this. It is the thing that we have also in our discussion. For the first question, that it was, yeah, what type of problem solving skills students need to learn, especially, yeah, it is case studies, challenge, problem solving, analysis, student that they have to learn to have this critical notion to resolve different problems. Okay, and this for the what type of problem solving, the majority of all of us in groups, we didn't agree about the number 2. Okay, number 2 for solving problems. And the last question, that the opportunities do you provide students to practice solving problems? It was in same with group discussion and also individual activity, that student that they have to develop, okay, their skill to resolve different problem. And this, yeah, this what we have in our group. The point that we discuss. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just wanted to see if there was anything else that came up on the Menti. There's a couple more things. Case studies, which we just heard. Various levels and disciplines have different types of problem solvings. The problem solving that students need to learn. Have students read the materials and get themselves prepared before going to class. Another, for the second question, students must reach out to teachers if they face problems in their studies. And then I force students to practice and learn how to solve problems. So over a period of time, they develop learning curve towards it and will not be fearful to solve any problem that comes along. I teach students taking professional courses. There's that fear that is in there. How do we teach students to be risk takers as well as part of their learning in our courses? We have just a few minutes left in our time together. Gillian, do you have any final thoughts or reflections?
Final thoughts or reflections. I'm a little surprised by the number of people who are able to identify that they're doing type 4, because that's really, really hard to build into an educational program. However, I guess if you're in a workplace, like Fernando is, where they've got masters and PhD students, then yes, type 4 is actually coming out. Because I think it would be hard to get past a lot of principals and ministry people where you're saying you're giving time to the students to do whatever they like when they don't really know what they're doing. So it's sort of almost counterintuitive. But somehow or other, we do need to give all of the learners, be they children, adolescents, university, tertiary aged people, even in the workplace, we need them time to think and time to explore. And as we heard from the last ideas that Ellie was just sharing, we need to break down that fear. We need to praise failure. Because if you do something and your problem fails and you're being reflective, then you can learn from that. So we need to sort of embrace the power of failure in our problem solving, reduce that fear, and build in that creativity. So that's, I think, my sum up for the session.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate all the time that each of you have spent with us today. We have one more session in this series. My colleague Robin Young, who's at the University of British Columbia in the Okanagan campus, she has taught as many as 1,200 undergraduates in introductory biology. I think she now only has 700, but she'll share some of her experience with engaging students in what I consider to be very large courses. Gillian, it's been a pleasure to have you as a co-presenter today. Melissa, do you have any final words for us?
Just thank you to both of you for those really fantastic lectures, and also to everyone for joining.
Great. Well, stay safe and we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for your attention.
Bye. Keep safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.